Before I introduce you to my next guest today, I want to make sure that you're aware of a training and coaching resource to help you increase your productivity, clarify your purpose, and improve your communication skills. It's called the Next Level Coaching and Leadership with Purpose programs. To learn more, simply go to warrenwandling.com, and under the programs tab, you'll find both of those resources. Again, that's WARRENWANDLING.com. Now, on to the show. Well, welcome back to another episode of How to Become an Obstacle Buster. I'm your host, Warren Wandling, the show that's dedicated helping leaders to overcome their obstacles, build resilience, and achieve success. And I have a great guest to help us do that today, Christian Jack. Welcome to the show, Christian.
Thanks so much, Warren. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. Christian, you have a background as being a master influencer in persuasion and sales. You have a track record in scaling businesses to multiple eight figures. You assist by coaching hundreds of professionals mastering their keys to success, like in communication, body language, and leadership. And if anybody on the show that didn't have anything that they wanted to accomplish in their life, I know that you're able to teach them to accomplish anything that they want to. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell our listeners a little more about your business.
Well, I run the Sales Dojo. We're a full stack company helping both sales professionals get better at sales and then helping place them as well as other various things for more on the B2B side as well, any businesses that are looking to scale.
Oh, interesting. So how did you get started in that specific niche within sales?
Well, I started in a high ticket sales. I guess it was about coming up on 3 years ago. So it hasn't been super long. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with sales. I fell in love with persuasion. I fell in love with business and, the game of it all. And so I just naturally kind of got very good at it. I invested lots of money into mentors and training programs and just I ate it up. I ate it up. I absolutely love everything that we do. So it kind of came easily in those years.
That's awesome. So working with your clients, what would you consider is your greatest obstacle that they have to overcome?
It's a good question. I think it depends. If we're talking about the most common, I would say just sales ops and sales systems typically is the biggest problem. Lots of people think they have a great system set up in terms of getting leads from marketing and pushing them through the sales process to close. But then lots of people think that their problem is on their sales staff, like their sales reps. They think that maybe they're not that good, that they need training, they need to improve their skills. And yes, of course you can do that. But personally, I'm a big systems person. I would rather build a system that works that lovingly an idiot can use and will still succeed, right? So then when you get people who are really good at what they do in there, then you just crush it. So I'd say sales ops is probably the most common one. And then the biggest one is probably just the mindset behind that, trying to kind of shift what people are focusing on, I think, a little bit. Because it's easy to blame other people. So
exactly. Actually, those are two interesting paths to take, right? The belief, the mindset, to be able to believe in the system that's going to do the work, and dealing certainly with probably I would think that those leaders that are in sales, sometimes there's high egos involved, thinking that they're going to be able to control the process. Mm-hmm. How do you overcome that mindset?
I think ultimately it's just realizing that I'd say the biggest thing that's really helped me in business and sales, and it applies to marketing too, and I think it's just a great life principle, is it doesn't matter about what you think. It doesn't matter about what you believe. It matters about what works. And so lots of people get caught up in building systems that they think are really cool or have all these great features and blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, you probably got into business to have a good time, make lots of money, have more freedom in your life, et cetera, et cetera. And so then you building out those systems that don't necessarily work, but you think are cool, is kind of the antithesis of the reason why you got into it in the first place. So I would say just realizing that it's not about you, it's about the customer, what they need, and usually it's pretty similar across the board for customers.
Interesting. So on the system side, is there custom work that you do with your clients, or is there like a set standard operating procedure that you kind of plug and play?
It's a good mix. So most of the time, it's fairly plug and play. There's going to be some tweaking that happens on the back end, though. At this point, I think we've done a little north of 100 million over the past 3 years. And so we've found a really good rhythm in terms of what works. We really specialize like more in the high ticket space. We've done some work with, real estate investors and med spas and like different places like that. But mostly in the high ticket space, we found what works. And so we usually stick to that. We'll implement the system kind of best guess based off of what we see within the business. And then once it's implemented, we'll allow some time for some data to come through, establish some trends, see how things are working or not working, and kind of just tweak from there.
Oh, interesting. So from a system side, is it more from from a software perspective, also putting together the sales funnel in reference from a marketing, pushing leads to the funnel?
It's definitely both. So usually, when it comes to the software side, a business will have its standard tools that it's using, right? Like different businesses will use different CRMs, different businesses will use different funnel building, website building platforms. And so just integrating everything that they need to use and knowing how each one works. And then really the magic happens in the sales funnel. So understanding what are the actual steps that a lead needs to go through in terms of their belief systems, their understanding of who you are and what you do, their know like trust factor, all those things that ultimately lead to, the final yes to move forward after that whole process, and just making it happen as smoothly and as consistently as possible.
Oh, interesting. So I'm really curious, what is the cold reading to close more deals?
Cold reading is it can kind of be a little bit of an ambiguous term, but usually what it means is being able to profile a person based off of just a few seconds or minutes of information. So let's take like somebody who we'll take a fairly obvious example. I always love talking about this. Have you ever been driving down the highway, Warren, and like you see, I don't know where in the world are you based?
In Kansas City area.
Kansas City. Okay, so you probably have seen this. A big, like, let's just say a big white truck, jacked up, like, 12 inches lifted, and it's got like the tap out sticker on the back window. It's got, those things hanging down from the hitch. Like, total, you've probably seen
Exactly.
it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
it's
in
great.
this area. You bet.
So all that cold reading is basically just taking all of these context clues and saying like, what can I reasonably assume about this person, right? And it is an assumption, like you don't really know 100%, but based off of certain factors, you can reasonably assume it, right? That person is probably going to be like, you know, somebody who might go to the gym. They like shooting guns, like fairly right side leaning, like just generally, you can kind of see some things. And so it's just taking that a step further and really systematizing it. So you can cold read people based off of their looks, right? Different accessories that they're wearing, the clothes that they're wearing, the way that they do their hair, how like well kept they are, right? Groomed. You can also profile based off of words that people use, the adjectives that they use, the certain pronouns that they use, and not in the way that nowadays people kind of talk about it, but uh, it's pretty cool when you go down that road. But it's all really deep kind of psychology, behavioral science type of stuff.
And is that like using AI to be able to gather that information from their websites and their profiles?
Not usually. So a cold read is something that you do either like in person or just like in the moment with another human being, right? Whether it be on Zoom if you're selling virtually or over the phone. It's something that one human has to like see and listen to another human to do. You can go to people's social media profiles and kind of see it, but I don't know of a way that AI can quite do it yet. There's a lot of different data points, and like it's got to analyze photos and social media posts, all that kind of stuff.
Interesting. So then once you know that information, then you can sell to that profile
Hmm.
based on the product or service that you're selling.
Yeah, yeah, it's connecting what it is about your product or service and how it helps people to the way that they want to be helped, right? So if you come across somebody, let's just say, that person driving the truck, you come across them on a sales call, and they fit into all the stereotypical things that you would have expected. Usually, that type of person is looking for like strength or power. They want to be seen as like the go-to person. So, maybe you're selling marketing services to that person, right? You're not going to say this is what everybody else is doing, because that person isn't really looking for what everybody else is doing. They're looking to be the standout. They're looking to be better than everybody else, right? So you can talk about how this is going to help them actually stand out from the crowd. You can help them realize that this is what all the top dogs are doing in order to then break past those barriers. So you're really playing into all of these mental, frameworks that this person likes. You're firing off dopamine in their head, just constantly, like fireworks.
Awesome. So why do you think it's important in reference to different skills around leadership to be able to master and scale an eight-figure business?
With leadership, I would say the ability to connect to your team and give feedback. If you can master those two things, I think that's really important, because very rarely will you just hire somebody and immediately scale to eight figures, right? Like it takes a pretty big team of people. It takes a lot of work. Takes a lot of adjustments, because there's always problems in business, and so it's very rare that you hire somebody and they just like immediately. You never have to talk to them again. You never have to check in with them. So being able to connect with people on your team, make sure that there's that human connection, you enjoy working together, like you're happy, you're healthy, etc. But then also being able to give the feedback loops for when those problems do arise. And inevitably, people are people, like we make mistakes all the time, right? I know I do. Uh, Being able to give that feedback to those people in a way that's constructive, in a way that encourages them, and doesn't just cause them to want to quit, right? Because then you got to do it all over again.
Yeah, excellent. So with why do you think it's an important step for structuring a presentation that sells like crazy? What are like the specific steps that you champion?
Specific steps. There's a couple of key kind of principles within this, and it really falls into the actual like sales process. So just kind of walking through from, let's just say, like from the very beginning, right? When you first get somebody's, I'm trying not to use the word here, in marketing, like what's the purpose of the hook? The purpose of the hook is
The-
to like get
to get
people's
create
attention.
interest.
Right, exactly. It's to create interest. And so once you have somebody's interest, then the next kind of step, usually in a sales funnel, is understanding, right? I'm interested in, let's just say, this new opportunity that AI is proposing for me to, offload some of the work from my sales team to be done by AI in a more consistent and professional manner. Great. How in the world does that work? Right. So understanding is the next step. After that, you kind of go into belief. So this is really starting to realize that this could work for you, right? Belief that this thing specifically could work for me specifically as a prospect. And then from there, you get into desire, right? Does somebody actually want to take a step forward with that or not? Next, after that, is usually covering resources. Is where you go over like pricing, investments, financing, all that kind of good stuff. And then action is last bit. So if you're structuring a presentation, you just structure it the exact same way as a sales funnel. So the first, few things in the presentation is supposed to just gain interest, hooks, sparking curiosity in the prospect or in the board if you're presenting to them or anything like that. And then once you have their interest, then you go into understanding and explaining the process. Like, how does this work from A to Z? And then you just keep going through the steps, step by step. All in all, you know, it's 5 steps or 6 steps. It's not too bad.
So is that from a digital perspective, like from an email side, or is it one to many or one to one? What's the
It's
structure?
all of it. So it without going too deep into it, it plays off of the principles of how your brain actually processes information. So when you first, let's say that there's some sort of input into your brain. Let's say that you're walking down the street and you've walked the street a million times. Maybe it's like 10, 11 p.m. It's dark, can't really see much. And as you're walking down the street that you've walked a million times, you pass by this bush that you've also passed a million times. But when you pass it, there's a rustle, right? The way your brain processes that information from start to finish is first there's interest, right? Like, whoa, there's something there, right? Your attention goes to it. After that, then your brain starts processing. It's trying to understand like what that could be. Like, was that a loud rustle? Was that a soft rustle? Was it behind the bush? Was it in front of the bush? Starting to like analyze the situation, right? Once your brain kind of makes sense of that, then it moves on to that belief stage, right? Like, is this relevant to me? Or was it like something else, right? Was it a kid like just shooting a Nerf gun at his mom in the other yard or something, right? Uh, so it's the same exact process that your brain just uses to naturally process information and make decisions. It's just now putting it into like a formalized step-by-step process inside of a sale, whether it be in an email explaining something, whether it be in the copy in an ad, whether it be a sales funnel with multiple steps from marketing to finish, whether you're presenting to a board, like I've used it for everything.
Interesting. So when you're working with clients, where's that obstacle for them to overcome in that process that they find resistance?
I think everybody, like, if you explain it thoroughly enough, it makes sense to them. There's not too many obstacles in terms of actually implementing it and like adopting it. The biggest obstacle is getting them to like take the time to sit down and understand this. But once they do, like I use the same funnel as I just went through anyway for people to come to work with me, right? First just getting their interest and then explaining the process. But once they have that, they start to realize, oh, this could work for me. And you get into desire. And, it's kind of a flywheel. So just the further you can get them in, the more likely they are to keep going.
Oh, interesting. So you'll do it in your marketing copy as well as face to
Hmm.
face, or if you're doing a webinar, you could use the same
Everywhere,
funnel.
everywhere. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's the cheat code to business.
So leadership is influence. What are some strategies that you use within your clients to help increase that, make an impact with the teams that they lead?
For leadership, I think it's the same thing that I mentioned before. It's just realizing that it's not about you. I think lots of leaders understand this, but the way that they act and they communicate does not match, right? So often we have these things in our lives that we know to be true, but we don't necessarily act on them fully or in the right way. Maybe we have the best of intentions, but we still make mistakes, right? So just realizing it's not about you and helping your team really grow in the best way possible, I'd say is number one. And then number two is just understanding that there's frameworks for leadership and there's best practices, just like anything else in life. So many people go into leadership and, they'll hear people referencing books and leadership principles, et cetera, et cetera. And they're usually just like these one liners, like they make sense, but it doesn't really go through tactically what to do, right? So I actually just made a long form video earlier today about this uh, with the what's it called? Like a framework that I use. It's called CORES. Uh, in order to give feedback to another human being, right? One of your employees. And so it's an acronym. It stands for context, observation, result, expectation, support. So it's just giving context around the situation, like why are we here? Why are we having this meeting here? Observation, these are the things that I've observed in terms of specific factual observations, concrete examples of what has been going on. the result of the behavior to the person specifically, and then expanding out to the team and then outside the team into the market. Expectation of like, here's what we expect from team members. This is what we expect from you. Giving suggestions for improvement, defining what success looks like, and then support, making sure that you communicate that like this person has a higher version of themselves, a higher potential inside of them that you want to see them step into. Ask them how else that you can support them in terms of achieving that goal that they have for themselves. And then just checking in and supporting them along the way. So just like that example, I would say is a great one of lots of people say give feedback. Maybe they'll say like the sandwich method,
Mm.
right?
Oh yeah.
Like say something good, then say something that they can work on, and then say something good again. But like it doesn't really help when you're in the thick of it on a day to day and you have this team member that has been struggling and you've been struggling to communicate to them. So just understanding it is a fully like developed skill that takes work and understanding and study, not just like one liners and motivation.
Yeah, I love that. I love the tactical thing with around leadership because I think
Mhm.
that's so true. Instead of just reading a book and grabbing a one-liner, there's actually some internal work you have to do to actually lead.
For sure.
So, since I believe leaders have a path of success through the different books that they read, so what are some books that really have impacted you in your business?
Oh man, uh, quite a few of them. I read quite a bit.
So, do you read or you use like Audible or other tools like?
I'll read. I will also use an app called Headway. It gives like summarizations of books. That's what I use to see if I really want to read the book. Now with Chat GPT and everything, I also use that to give me summaries and key points from books so that I know whether I really want to go into it. So it depends on like the topic, but I'd say with leadership, Leaders Eat Last is a great one. I think that's by Simon Sinek. Uh, Good to Great is
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
awesome book.
The next one's a little controversial, and like you definitely got to take most of the book with a grain of salt. But 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, I think, is also a great leadership book. Just understanding how humans like behave and how they
Mhm.
work together. And then The Obstacle is Away, Ryan Holiday is a fantastic
Mhm.
one. What is it? I just started a book by Chris Hodges and John Maxwell. I forget what it's called, but that one is fantastic too.
Oh,
Um,
really? Awesome.
yeah, I'm looking it up real quick. Leadership book because it's fair. Yeah, Jesus the High Road Leader. So I'm
Okay.
working on that one.
Awesome. I'll have to add that one to my list.
It's pretty cool so far. My older brother actually gave it to me for Christmas, and he works with John Maxwell, so he got it signed. So I have a signed copy over there.
Well, I know our listeners will want to be able to get in touch with you, but before we approach that question, what are the special projects that you're working on?
Special projects right now. So I'm running the sales dojo. I'm working on a little bit of a shift on the front end of that and how people actually go into it. And it's a really interesting idea. And people, if even if people are following me very closely, this would be the first place that they would hear about it because I'm still working on it. But I have an idea, and it's called the Sales Games. I haven't come up with like the actual name yet, and I'll make sure not to give everything away. But the idea is that sales professionals very often their biggest source of motivation and inspiration and like pushing themselves to grow is within their own teams that they're selling in, right? And while that's great, it's also highly effective for businesses to have reps in a little bit of a friendly competitive environment outside of their job, right? Because then that makes their work in their job a little bit more stable. Um, so the idea is to make this place where a ton of sales reps can come together and essentially compete in teams. So they can join different teams of fellow salespeople and compete with their metrics. So it'll be different industries, different types of sales reps, whether it be setters or full stack reps or closers or whatever it might be. And they join teams, and those teams compete for prizes and trainings and bringing in special guests to come in and talk to them and all sorts of different things. So I'm working on that. I'm excited about it. It's nowhere near done yet, but we're making progress on it. So that's probably my most exciting project right now, for me at least. It won't
Yeah,
make
I
a ton
love
of
that. So
money,
you're
but
just going to gamify.
exactly. Exactly. I think just there's so many people that need, like, the world needs more community these days.
Mhm.
And as connected as everybody is on social media, we've never been disconnected nearly as
Isn't that
much as
so
we are
true?
right now.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's an exciting project. So I know our listeners will want to be able to connect. So what is the best way for them to be able to reach out?
Man, I would say probably go to we can put a link in the show notes for this, but if you ever want to reach out, any social media platform, like, I'm on it. Uh, but I would say go to www.thesalesdojo.co/OB for
Okay, perfect.
obstacle buster.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll make sure that is in the show notes.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Any last minute advice that you'd like to share with our listeners that you would think would be important to know?
I'd say the biggest thing for me that I try to keep top of mind that's led to a lot of success in a lot of different ways is just focus on what really matters, whether it be in business, focusing on actually driving revenue, or, decreasing the bottom line, or, um, whatever it might be there. If it's personal, making sure that you focus on, the relationships that matter the most to you. If it's, your health, making sure that you're focusing on that. So just, especially with it being, as we're recording this in the beginning of the year, it's a great time to just look at what really matters, and set your sights on it for the year and focus on it. And you'll be, what's the quote? You overestimate what you can do in a year, but you underestimate what you can do in 10. So just focus on the right things, consistently push towards them, and you'll be surprised how far you go.
Well, awesome. Well, Christian, thank you for sharing all your great strategies and techniques, helping our leaders really overcome those obstacles, certainly in sales, so they can be able to develop the resilience.
Appreciate it. Loved coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Well, again, this is your host, Warren Wandling, saying until next time, be an obstacle buster and be resilient.